we already discussed this topic once in terms of how to think about the sustainability of the AI itself. We have talked a lot about AI for climate predictions, improving models, various other applications for agriculture, water, health, energy, etc. But here is another article again raising the issue of just how much energy AI consumes. And now AI is everywhere. People are using it, just as play for making these Ghibli studio images and all sorts of things. A friend of mine has become addicted to doing AI renditions of all the friends and so on. And this is a specific focus on some cases where let's say a big cloud center by Amazon, Microsoft, whoever moves into your state, and the governor says, wow, this is going to create a lot of employment, and then people realize, wow, it's also an energy hog if it begins to affect their lives, right? So these are interesting dynamics of how AI is going to play a big role. There is no going back now, bigger and bigger role in fact, but we also have to keep on worrying about its energy demands. Of course, decarbonizing the system is something to think about in almost every context, and AI will hopefully help with that as well. So research, this says AI's energy problem appeared just a few weeks ago. Researchers want firms to be more transparent about the electricity demands of artificial intelligence, right? I won't read all of the text, but let's just get a gist of it, because a feature article, which is what this is, these are typically written by freelance journalists, and they interview people who are experts and then put together a narrative that is not just a science article, but kind of a context, journalistic context. So it's meant for lay audience as well. The aroma of hay and manure hangs over Culpeper County, Virginia, where there is a cow for every 3 humans. Farmland. We have got big farms, but most still family owned, and a lot of forests, says Sarah Parmelli, one of the county's 55,000 residents. It's a very charming small town USA, she adds, but this pastoral idyll is in the middle of a 21st century shift. Basically, the governor has gone on and got some plans to bring AI technology firms into the region for employment, because to win elections, you have to always say, I created employment, increased the tax base, provided new resources for other, spending by the government. So inside the giant structures of AI companies, rows of computer servers will help to train AI models behind chatbots such as ChatGPT and deliver their answers to what might be billions of daily queries from around the world. Billions of daily queries, and this number also keeps going up. And now you don't even have to choose. If you go and do Google search, it on the top is usually what their AI Gemini, I think, says, and you have to opt out of it if you want, and that can save some energy, of course. It's not an opt-in option, it's an opt-out option, which means everybody is going to get that automatically. So in Virginia, the construction will have profound effects. Obviously, there will be straining lots of things, but power infrastructure is one of the things, and Parmelli and others in the community are wary of the data center's appetite for electricity, particularly because Virginia is already known as the data center capital of the world. A state commissioned review published in December 2024 noted that although data centers bring economic benefits, their growth could double electricity demand in Virginia within 10 years. It could be that everybody begins to have energy problems, power problems, prices may go up, utility bills may go up, and rentals will go up, and so on and so forth. Where is power going to come from? Asks Parmelli, who is mapping the rise of data centers in the state and works for the Piedmont Environmental Council, a non-profit organization headquartered in Warrenton, Virginia. They are all saying we'll buy power from the next district over, but that district is planning to buy power from you, so this has not been planned in terms of energy demands that will come with these things. So similar conflicts of AI and energy are brewing in many other places around the globe, not just in US or Virginia. Big tech firms are betting hard on generative AI, which requires much more energy to operate compared with older AI models that extract patterns from data and so on. And the big tech companies, let's say just the big daddies in the business, Amazon, Google, Microsoft, Apple, have worried about energy before for their cloud centers because they are selling cloud services, making a lot of money as well. And cloud centers need a lot of energy, and they have, gone after renewables, geothermal, and even thinking about nuclear and so on. So they are not unaware of the problems, but this is a growing problem of AI users who are going to keep cranking energy demand by just using. When you take your iPhone and do searches, you're not thinking about energy use. You're just happy with the results it spits out. And we are experimenting so much with ChatGPT that we are really exponentially increasing the energy demand. So from a global perspective, AI impact on future electricity demand is actually projected to be relatively small, but data centers are concentrated in dense clusters where they can have profound local impacts. They are much more spatially concentrated than other energy intensive facilities such as steel mills and coal mines. Companies tend to build data centers buildings close together so that they can share power grids and cooling systems and transfer information efficiently, both among themselves and to users. So there is a plan there in terms of optimizing infrastructure, but then energy grid has to match the demands as well. If you have one, you are likely to have more. Says Parmelee, Virginia already has 340 such facilities, and Parmelee has mapped 159 proposed data centers or expansions of existing ones in Virginia, where they account for more than 1/4 of the state's electricity use, more than 25% of the state's electricity use. Okay, so facilities electricity consumption has surpassed 10% in at least 5 US states, and Ireland data centers now account for more than 20% of country's electricity consumption. It's a small country, but still you have to worry about your energy dependence. And Ireland, which is generally not famous for its sunny days, how will it manage? Does it have enough renewables from wind maybe, and will it grow other sources like nuclear, or will it start to depend more and more on fossil fuels? Because Ireland wants this business. They are happy to take all this business, but then where is the energy going to come from? So complicating matters further is a lack of transparency from firms. So the real problem is that you're operating with very little detailed data and knowledge of what's happening, says Jonathan Coomey, an independent researcher who has studied the energy use of computing for more than 30 years and who runs an analytic firm in Burlingame, California. I think every researcher on this topic is going crazy because we are not getting the stuff we need, says Alex de Vries, I don't know, a researcher at the Free University of Amsterdam and the founder of Digiconomist, a Dutch company that explores the unintended consequences of digital trends. We're just doing our best, trying all kinds of tricks to come up with some kind of numbers. Okay, then working out AI's energy demands becomes critical, and researchers have explored AI energy demand in 2 ways. In 2023, DeVries used a supply chain or market-based method. He examined the power draw of one of the NVIDIA servers that dominates the generative AI market and extrapolated that to the energy required over a year. He then multiplied that figure by estimates of the total number of such servers that are being shipped or that might be required for a particular task. DeVries used this method to estimate the energy needed if Google searches used generative AI. Imagine, okay, billions of searches every day, and then generative AI is going to add a layer of expensive energy consumption. Two energy or computation and hence energy consumption. Two energy analyst firms had estimated that implementing ChatGPT like AI into every Google search would require between 400,000 and 500,000 NVIDIA A100 servers, which based on the power demand of these servers would amount to 23 to 29 terawatt hours annually. Then estimating that Google was processing up to 9 billion searches daily, this is a ballpark figure from various analysts, DeVries calculated that each request through an AI server requires 7 to 9 watt hours of energy. That is 23 to 30 times the energy of a normal search, going by figures Google reported in 2009 blog post, which is obviously way outdated. When asked to comment on DeVries' estimate, Google did not respond because the 2009 number is now going to explode because of all these AI use, and especially regenerative AI, whatever we called it. Okay, generative AI. This energy calculation felt like grasping at straws, DeVries says, because he had to rely on third-party estimates. Basically, this is all about how lack of transparency is going to make it impossible to estimate and project the need for energy as we go forward. So if Ireland or Virginia, a state in the US, start inviting cloud services and IT companies, AI companies, then they better have a good sense of what energy demand will come along with those, and then are you really gaining something, or are you going to have to put up much more than you bargained for? Nobody has any idea what data centers, either AI or conventional, will use even a few years from now, let alone in 10 or 20 years. Okay, so even so, the firm says this is just another company. Best way of assessing generative AI's energy footprint is still to monitor server shipments and their power requirements, which is broadly the method used by many analysts. That's so indirect, right? So you have to really be much better than that, but unless there is transparency, that's not going to be possible. There are also bottom-up estimates. The other way to examine AI's energy demand is bottom-up. Researchers measure the energy demand of one AI-related request in a specific data center. However, independent researchers can perform the measurements using only open-source AI models that are expected to resemble proprietary ones. The concept behind these tests is that a user submits a prompt, such as a request to generate an image or a text-based chat, and a Python software package called CodeCarbon then allows the user's computer to access technical specifications of the chips that execute the model in the data center. You're sitting here and spying on the data center. At the end of the run, it'll give you an estimate of how much energy was consumed by the hardware that you were using, and so that's said by Sasha Lucioni, an AI researcher who helped to develop CodeCarbon and who works at Hugging Face, a firm based in New York City that hosts an open source platform for AI models and datasets. Nonetheless, the point is that if you do it this way, then you're going to sample enough such AI activities and then try to scale it up or estimate the global energy use based on such sampling, which can work if you get sufficient samples, right? So comparison, for comparison, a modern smartphone might need 22 watts of For comparison, a modern smartphone might need a 22 watt hour for a full charge, but there is wide variation. Large models require energy use. See how much energy does AI use. DeVries says that the numbers are lower than those in his paper, but that might be because the models used by Lucioni and others are at least an order of magnitude smaller than the models underlying ChatGPT, and because AI is becoming more efficient. So we are in a race where AI is, going in all kinds of directions, but being used more and more, and energy use has to be tracked. Is it becoming efficient in the sense of using less energy, or is it not based on energy use, but just the speed at which you get your information, image or search or text or whatever else? Okay, so these numbers are anyway a lower bound. Companies would be becoming out companies will be coming out and correcting us if the numbers are too high. If they are not doing that, then you are probably way below their estimate, and they are happy to let you put out those estimates. What's more, firms generally withhold the information the software needs to estimate the energy used for data center cooling. Code Carbon also cannot access the energy consumption of some types of chips. This includes Google's proprietary TPU chip, says Benoit Corti, a data scientist in France who maintains Code Carbon. Okay, so there are other estimates as well, and I won't go into the details, but training something the size of GPT-3, the model behind the first version of ChatGPT, requires energy in the order of a gigawatt hour. Last month, Lucioni and other researchers launched the AI Energy Score Project, a public initiative to compare the energy efficiency of AI models on different tasks, which gives each model a star rating. So maybe then companies can compete to get a better star rating and brag about their energy efficiency, right? Peer pressure always works. Developers of proprietary closed models are also able to upload test results, although only the US software firm Salesforce has participated so far, Luciani says. So it's a kind of a club model where companies can submit their test AI runs and say we are only using so much energy, and then there has to be verification, and then monitoring comes along so that you can track the overall energy use. That will be fantastic, right? So I will skip further. Let's just look at how much energy does AI use. Picture is worth 1,000 words. The AI Energy Score project tested dozens of artificial intelligence models to estimate how much energy they consume when performing various tasks. Plotting the energy required to perform a task 1,000 times shows that energy use varies greatly depending on the task and the model. So obviously we'll need a way to measure these, monitor these, create a scoring system, and get companies to voluntarily try to earn better scores. Total energy consumed in watt hours to perform a task 1,000 times. So the numbers are going here from 0.01 to 10,000 watt hours. And just for comparison, image generation mean is around 519 watt hours, 288 for text generation. 22 watt hour is the energy required to fully charge a smartphone from, let's say, 0 to 100. And image captioning, 104 watt hours. Question answering, cheaper, 23 watt. And automatic speech recognition at 22, and summarization at 7 watt hours. This has become quite common. When people don't want to read a scientific paper, you just ask ChatGPT to give you a summary, and it does a fairly decent job. But this is only when you test with the papers you know, so that you develop some kind of a confidence. But if somebody who doesn't know keeps getting summaries of papers and they assume that's the God's truth, then you can have other problems that will crop up later. So what are the global projections then? On the basis of supply chain estimation methods, analysts say that data centers currently use just a small proportion of world's electricity demand. That's now. We had similar discussions for cryptocurrency. Cryptocurrencies haven't taken off because they also include a lot of computations. And you can see that even the existing numbers are scary. They are larger than many of the smaller countries like Norway. Okay, the International Energy Agency estimates that the electricity used by such facilities in 2022 was 240 to 340 terawatt hours, or 1 to 1.3% of the total world demand. If cryptocurrency mining and data transmission infrastructure are included, this raises the proportion to 2%. Is that still very low? Well, depends. If they are all concentrated like in Virginia or Ireland, then it can be much larger proportion of their electricity use, like 20% in 10% or more in Virginia and Ireland. The AI boom will increase this, but the proportion of use, but with the world electricity consumption expected to grow by more than 80% by 2050 owing to the electrification of many industries, the rise of electric cars and greater demand for air conditioning, data centers account for a relatively small share of overall electricity demand growth. Well, we can't just worry about the demand proportion of the total production, etc. Basically, if electrification is a great solution for mitigation and adaptation to climate change, then we need to keep growing the non-carbon sources of energy, renewable bioenergy, nuclear is renewable, geothermal, whatever, at a rate to keep up with these. So it's not always about the projection of demands, but also projection of energy sources, right? Even with approximations of AI's current energy demands, it's difficult to project future trends, warns Kumi. Nobody has any idea what data centers, either AI or conventional, will use even a few years from now, he says. Another small trivia, even the autonomous driving cars, they are basically cloud centers. They are constantly collecting data as they navigate themselves, and they are also energy hogs. And if we keep increasing the numbers, there is the electrification, electric vehicles, but there are autonomous drivers which are cloud centers, right? The main problem is disagreements about the number of servers and data centers that will be needed, and it's an area where utilities and tech companies have financial incentives to inflate numbers, he says. Many of their predictions are based on simple-minded assumptions, he adds. They extrapolate recent trends out to 10 or 15 years into the future. Late last year, Kumi co-authored a report funded by the U.S. Department of Energy, which estimated that U.S. data centers currently use 176 terawatt hours, 4.4% of the country's electricity, and that this might double or triple by 2028 to between 7 and 12%. SemiAnalysis, meanwhile, argued in a March report that data centers would consume even more, 15% of US electricity by 2028 and 4.5% of global energy demand by 2030, about double the IEA's figures. Okay, so Virginia, I won't go into the details, but obviously it's playing out. Companies generally do not make the figures public for individual centers, so you have to deal with that. But last month, Virginia lawmakers passed a data center transparency bill, which was waiting for the state governor's signature as this article went to press. It does not require firms to disclose their electricity needs, but calls for environmental impact reports on aspects such as water and land use, which are in addition to energy use, cooling centers, for example, right? But remember that this is how the systems tend to work. Virginia, once the businesses invites them, people start to get worried about their electricity demand, water use, etc. Then legislators say we need to track these things, so they make transparency bills and so on. In the meantime, Virginia's electricity infrastructure is already showing strain. Some approved data centers in Prince William County, west of D.C., Washington D.C., face delays of up to 3 years because the electric utility cannot provide them with power by their promised timeline. The JLARC report says that it will be very difficult, you go back and track what is JLARC, for utility companies in Virginia to build enough infrastructure for the forecasted data center demand. Solar facilities would need to be added at twice the annual rate of 2024, and wind generation would have to exceed the capabilities of all offshore wind sites that have so far been secured for future development. Then there are other issues. Who wants solar and wind in their neighborhood? Offshore, yes, but what if climate change begins to reduce the wind energy potential? right? How will clouds change and solar energy potential change with climate change? So there is a never-ending demand for planning information as well at very local scales. So Microsoft struck a deal last year to restart a nuclear reactor at the 3 Mile Island site in Pennsylvania. So you can imagine to what extent they are going to meet their own energy demands, because they don't want to, you cannot reduce your energy consuming businesses because you think it's bad for the environment, or that energy demand cannot be kept up with. So they just seek new energy sources, which makes sense, but it has to come back to footprints: land, water, and carbon, of course, greenhouse gases, right? So carbon emissions are always a concern in that sense. Could AI demand fall? The frenzy to build data centers rests on the assumption that more people want to use AI more regularly, but the speed and manner in which AI use will grow remains fundamentally uncertain, wrote IEA analysts in a commentary last year. There are concerns about the inconsistent performance of AI and about lawsuits challenging models over copyright infringement. It's also unclear how much computational power will be needed in the future for generative AI. And also we are talking about large-scale tools like generative, ChatGPT, Gemini, Grok, whatever the Musk AI is. But there are also a lot of small instruments and devices flying around, like drones and various other instruments which are using AI, right? So we have to really see how much use of AI is happening in a distributed fashion, and what that may add up to in terms of energy use as well. China's DeepSeek R1 model, released earlier this year, is able to rival US models at apparently a fraction of the monetary cost, although that claim has been challenged already. This has led some researchers to suggest that engineers can now create better models without necessarily making them bigger, which could decrease data center computational demand. But that's wishful thinking, hope, and hope is not a strategy, as the old saying goes. By contrast, if generative AI becomes much more efficient, it's likely that people will use it more. An observation known as the Jevons paradox: people will use it more when things become efficient. This is a well-known Jevons paradox after the 19th century English economist William Stanley Jevons. He observed that greater efficiency of coal-powered technologies sped up their adoption, offsetting any energy savings. We are always doing this, right? It's a very complicated dance where we are trying to improve things and then increasing consumption to offset the improvement, and so on. In a decade, it's possible that use of generative AI will grow according to plan, with all of Culpeper County's currently proposed data centers operating at full capacity. It's also possible that generative AI will become a relatively niche technology, and that some data centers will close down because of a lack of demand. If you are making confident predictions and yet there is huge uncertainties, somebody is going to get burned, but that's a comment, so I don't want to correct the English. Nonetheless, this is a good way to learn again about the AI energy demand and how AI may do a lot of good things, but as long as it remains an energy hog, we want to think about carbon-free energy sources. Right? Reduce the carbon intensity of the energy to make AI help everything. The idea is not to shut down AI, but the idea is to make better energy sources, decarbonize the system. Anyway, with that, I'll stop here.